I don't feel very comfortable in society after the war. The way the people there delegated the entire war to the armed forces is very bad. Because the armed forces will not defeat the enemy, the whole nation will win. We have been slaves for more than 3 centuries. This responsibility should be felt by various arrestees. We have been slaves for more than 3 centuries. This responsibility should be felt by various arrestees. God be with him, with that Arestovich. During the war, you can buy more in a store than you were systematically packed in that dry ration. Fuck them. Someone's going to get their cunts kicked.
Now there is a draft law.
The movie is well edited.
Look, let's start with a simple question to find out how you live. Because you don't give interviews very often. I don't see much of you in the media, so please tell us what you're doing now, what your plans are, what you're doing, how often you're in Kyiv.
I don't often give interviews because I don't think they are very useful. To be honest, I give interviews only to friends or people I respect. That's why I'm here today, because what you do for the state is really worth the price of your own life and health. What am I doing now? I am currently creating a group within the XV Regiment, a separate regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine created by the General Staff. I am forming my group in the Airborne Battalion and waiting for the guys to be transferred. While the transfer process is underway, and everyone in the armed forces knows that it is, unfortunately, not a quick process, I am now working on closing the material and technical base so that when the guys arrive, they have the best equipment. They are equipped to the maximum and are focused only on results, on work.
Save up money. Well, this is all a long time. Another month, 2 months, and Azov, for example, is still collecting what they lost.
And during this time that I have been trying to resolve this issue, and I have almost, well, not almost, I actually have completely closed all issues, from multi-tools to new Autel, like 4T, and now I am actually starting to burn out inside a little, in the sense that war is a thing that you always need to be in rhythm. And every day I'm waiting for the guys to be transferred, and we'll start to get organized and begin our work. Now you live in Kyiv, right? You live here, you rest here. Well, I am either in the unit or in Kyiv, depending on the tasks. Right now, as the regiment is being formed, the battalion is being formed, and my group is being formed, and I have good relations with the commander, with people from our regiment, so they said that they understand that. I also have some media work and obligations that also give some result in society, so I should do this for now, and they will deal with the transfer of the guys.
Well, they don't mind that you write songs that you're there.
They themselves, some of them even write songs. I even found out that there is a guy from the Moral and Psychological Support Department who has been fighting as a volunteer since he was 14, and he also happens to be a rap artist. So yesterday, he sent me his tracks, and they are quite good. That's why we have the best possible understanding now.
Well, I ask that because, you know, many in the armed forces of Ukraine, in special forces, all soldiers are forbidden to express their opinions about the army, people, politics, even fundraising are forbidden.
Such a situation was when I have been in the Special Operations Forces, and basically I understand why. In general, having been in the Special Operations Forces, to be honest, I had a very good attitude from the commanders. But I understood that for a public person, this is not the best place to be. Firstly, for example, we were working in the Kharkiv region at the beginning of this year, and literally after we were transferred to Kherson to the south of Ukraine, a week later, an Iranian drone named Shahed flew into the house where my partner and I lived. And to be honest, public figures sometimes uncover a military unit. That's why I think I made a very good decision to leave the Special Operations Forces. Because the secrecy that exists in this structure did not suit me very well either. And it's not always good that media people are in special forces.
Well, yes. In fact, people also ask me why you are always in the car. Don't you ever go anywhere, and you're always in your car? And I just say, well, because it's the only place where I can film myself, and do not like the location where I am.
I absolutely understand it. I spent 6 months shooting video in my car.
Because, first of all, I'm not afraid for myself, but for those who are next to me. I am afraid to film something, to show something, and then even if...
to miss a detail that could get into the frame, which could unmask the unit.
And now in Kiev, do you feel the same support as at the beginning of the war? In general, how do you feel about the social component of the country now? The one that is hinterland?
I don't like the fact that people have been relaxed too early, and they were comforted too much by the words that we had almost won, and they are psychologically prepared for this. And now it turns out that unjustified expectations have been imposed on a huge part of society because they were already going to rest in Crimea this summer. And then a really complicated tactical and strategic war began, in which consistency will win. In our case, the armed forces of Ukraine alone will not be able to defeat the enemy. Only a united Ukrainian nation that will support the armed forces of Ukraine to the end, that will believe in them, that will be on the same wave with them, will be able to win. Now there is an imbalance, that is, the nation has relaxed a bit regarding the situation at the front, so we need to balance this motivation and reality. In fact, there are things that surprise me.
Drums?
Well, drums and building too. While I went to the broadcasts, I saw they were building a road bridge near Shulyavka subway station, and I don't understand this a little bit. I understand the budget for this bridge, and at the same time, I understand how many things are lacking at the front today. I was told that all these projects are being done with foreign funds, because foreign funds cannot be spent on war, but only for infrastructure facilities. Maybe, but I believe, if there were no vested interests, it would be possible to allocate funds more rationally and better to provide our army with the necessary things. Opportunities can be found. And here, unfortunately, people are only looking for opportunities, as opposed to the other way around, where they can steal during the war, illegally become rich and leave this country.
What do you think of civilian daily life and the situation in Kiev and other cities now?
To be honest, I would like our people to be more involved in the struggle, because they were too relaxed during the previous year by our counteroffensive, and many were preparing to have a vacation in Crimea this summer. Unfortunately, this did not happen for objective and understandable reasons for the military. For example, I already felt that in February, unfortunately, we would not be in Crimea this summer, because the way we were slowly receiving some weapons, the way our unit prepared, I realized that this was not enough for us to be in Crimea this summer. But some things are surprising me. To be honest, I don't know if it's post-traumatic stress disorder or not, but after the war, I don't feel very comfortable in society. I feel like I'm traveling from another world, with different thoughts, with a different internal state. And now, when I'm waiting for the guys to be transferred, I'm really looking forward to returning to the front line, because I have a feeling of unfinished business. I mean, I'm not resting here in Kyiv, because I realize that the war is ongoing, And the situation is so precarious that everyone needs to be involved. And the way the people there delegated this whole war to the armed forces is very bad. Because the armed forces will not defeat the enemy, the whole nation will win. And everyone should realize this. Everyone should continue to donate and understand how global this event is for our nation. We have been slaves there for more than 3 centuries, and now we have a real chance to free ourselves and become an independent, developed European state. This is so important, I believe, for every Ukrainian, that the only thing that should be above this is perhaps the safety of the family. But this is the responsibility of every family there. And for example, for me, every second of my life is now devoted to our fight. And I hope that people will now wake up a little from this drunken motivation, which was imposed on them for 1.5 years, and realize the real situation, how much the involvement of each of them is needed.
Well, do you feel that it is also my fault here? And maybe a little bit of yours, other military, and in general, the media space, right? I mean, because we are constantly talking about victory and showing only victory, right? Even that videos of the 3rd Brigade. When you watch it, you think, well, guys have been fighting there, choo-choo-choo. There are corpses, there are war prisoners, everything is fine. But in fact, if you know how things really are, in any military unit, actually they can try to storm even one landing 10 times, and people see only one try, and they are like,
the edited
well...
movie is good, with only positive moments. In war, you always need to show only positive moments to avoid demotivation. Partly, perhaps, we went too far, because, for example, I am one of those who wrote in the fall that we should smash the occupiers and enter Crimea. But we have no other choice but to motivate people in such an unequal fight against such a great enemy. That's why I don't feel much responsibility personally. I think that this responsibility should be felt by the various persons like Arestovich who were telling such nonsense. During the first month of the war, when I was completely far from military affairs, I listened to some broadcasts of Arestovich in March, because he was an official representative of the president's office. And, roughly speaking, his words were perceived as the official position at that time. And so it was. And then, the more I slowly became a military man, the more I realized that this information was just a disgrace to
I
such
haven't listened
looky-loos.
to it since the beginning of the war. I turned it on once, watched it at the beginning, and then turned it off. I thought, yeah, it's not for me, I can't watch it. And that's it. And a lot of my friends, the military, Azov people, you know, anyone were watching, and, well, they were... Especially when he was talking about Mariupol, Azovstal, well, in general, everything is cool.
And I remember the reactions of my brothers from Azov, who were there at the time, that there were conflicts, like he was playing this game a little bit and believed in what he said.
Fuck it, in short.
But we also have to soberly assess, he worked for the audience, for example, housewives.
And now he's saying the opposite. I even don't understand what opinion he wants to
Now he's saying the
convey.
opposite. In fact, I don't understand. Somehow he's... well, somehow. So there.
Because he cannot find a reflection among people like you and me, with such views, really with statehood minds, and so he is looking for his audience, who still believe him and still listen to what he says. God be with him, with this Arestovich.
Okay, let's talk about money. Paving stones, drums, stadiums. We have political advertising in Kharkiv. Like they are already preparing for the elections. How do you react to all this? Because you recently did your own fundraiser, and you support the OKKO fundraiser. They collect our 100 million. By the way, I also recently refueled my car with Pulse gas. I think I also joined this mission. At least it's nice to think about it.
By the way, about this campaign named Come Back Alive, organized by OKO Enterprise. No advertising, just a mathematical and logical understanding of things. 400 million, which provides 25 territorial defense teams. That's a lot of money. 25 brigades that are provided with machine guns, grenade launchers, and mortars. The level of assistance is incredible. But what does 400 million hryvnias mean to the state? It's nothing. It's a paltry. And I'm just surprised that we have to come up with some kind of fees involving business to close such primitive issues. And today, in this critical situation, the Ministry of Defense has not closed a lot of issues in some areas. I'm not going to criticize it harshly, because, in principle, the amount of weapons we need is enormous. And the fact that we are currently negotiating on F-16 fighter jets, the fact that we have received tanks, the fact that we received HIMARS. I understand that this is also a titanic work, but it means that something is built wrong inside, that we have a huge deficit in drones, we have a huge deficit in supplies. To be honest, I was just fucking furious when we were given dry rations. I thought that we were given rations from 2017 or 2018. When we were on our way to the mission, our rear guard dropped 20 such dry rations. And anyway, when I opened them, at first I thought they were expired, and then I saw that they were from April 2023. And I was so surprised, because everything there, for example, even the cookies, they were so dry and stale. Well, really, cookies, the only thing there is more or less that you can eat, even it was not tasty. This is probably the first time in my life that I have met such a puncture, in short. I looked at all this and thought that in this day and hour time, if you are a normal person, there are no problems with products at all. You just go to a store and figure out what a person can eat in a day, what they need to maintain their energy level. Take one product, other goods and things, you already have a dry ration. That's it. Today, this is really not a problem. It's literally not a problem that, for example, when we were doing our task in the south in the Kherson direction and we located in one of the villages, right there, at the very front edge on the shore near the occupiers' position. The village was being shelled every day, shelled with everything, with tanks, artillery, sometimes there is a reactive volley fire system. And this is so primitive. I mean that after a month of fighting there, we found out that literally 400 meters from our positions was a shop that worked until 2 in the afternoon. And I found out about it at the end of the rotation. So we were like, I'm so tired of the shelling. And I say to my guys, I'm going to the store. Anyway, I come to the store, and in the store, you know, in the village, where is the war? This is the front line, where just a couple of days before, a tank shell launched next to the store and destroyed people's houses. 3 cars were damaged, just blew them away. So I went in and everything was there. There were Snickers and Bounty chocolates. Anyway, at the end of my rotation, I bought some pistachios, bought some Bounty, and returned to my position. The shelling started again, and we were eating pistachios, and it was so primitive that you can buy more in a store at Frontline than you were systematically packed in that dry ration. And it was odd.
Well, I tell you, I served in 2014, 2015, 2016, and half of 2017. I just took out biscuits and pâté, heated the last one up, put it on the biscuits, ate that, and threw the rest away. Someone else ate that porridge, but I didn't.
Until now, yes, there was some porridge, some kind of tourist kit, some piece of meat. I was told that. My college said that. There was normal meat in this tourist kit. I guess it is called that. I opened it, and, honestly, there was this jelly, this cycle. What is it like, I don't know.
Well, in general, I also talked with people about dry ration. I tasted Polish and American ones.
I tried the Canadian one and was surprised. It was nothing fancy, but there were some nuts packed, some delicious jam, some chocolate bar. Well, that's how I imagined it. Coffee, sugar, tea. That is, everything is so simple that a person is basically satisfied and provided with some kind of energy value in critical conditions. And, as I said, when I opened our dry ration, at first I thought that we were just given some old ones because they were given to us in the last minutes before we went on task, and we said we didn't need them. I think maybe they just give us some stuff, and I look at the date of production, and it was April of 2023. And I was so surprised, disappointed. Well, what is happening at the front now? It was just the beginning of June. We were assigned to one of the Special Operations Forces centers there, and they were supposed to storm the left bank of Kherson region, and it was postponed because the counteroffensive in the Zaporizhzhia direction did not have quick results. I just watch and understand why all this is postponed, in general, because all this should starts with such simple things that seemed simple to a normal person. But unfortunately they were not closed, so it resulted in problems on a larger scale.
We have a systemic impotence in the system. Because, well, in 2014 I tried the one dry ration that they gave us in the training ground. Then there were Polish and Ukrainian food. I got the Ukrainian one, I opened it, and I thought I was hungry, but I couldn't eat it. I opened it, looked at it, closed it, and said I'd rather be hungry. We were recently at the positions, and we were given Polish food. And I was with my fellow soldiers. He took 2 dry rations for us for one day. We opened one. And when you're on the positions all day, you don't even want to eat, right? And we opened one. I took pasta with meat. He took stew. We took coffee, condensed milk, sugar, and warmed it up.
Simple things, right? You made simple things for yourself. What's the big deal?
Well, I have spoken out a lot about this, as well as for our Ukrainian pixel military form. That's why I consider it a grandiose, corrupt mechanism and method.
And then it flows into the global problems that we see on the front. I was generally surprised because we did not eat these dry ration. Then we were transferred to Kakhovka, and we worked in the Taurian direction. Guided aerial bombs arrive in Tavrisk and Kozatsk every day, just half-ton bombs every day. And there are exactly 3 stores in Tavrisky that you walk into, and there is everything. There you can find all the goods, any Fanta, Kvass, ice cream. And this is the only thing that did not cause us to have some kind of emotional burnout regarding how the state provided us with food. After all, any drone is bought almost with our own money. When such things are even primitive, you think, well, fuck, at least feed me a little. And then you open this dry ration and think,
I would rather said, don't spend the money, just send it to my card and I'll buy it for myself. Well, because I didn't take your ration. Well, for all the time I was on combat duty recently, how much did I eat there? Well, 1 or 2 dry rations and that was it. Because I never took such dry rations. I'd rather take a snack bar, and then, if the guys have some in the trench, I might have some snacks there, and that's it. I always left it for other guys because I don't eat much on the positions. You know, in Kharkiv, when the ATO was still going on, they built a zoo for 2 billion hryvnias. Now, when there was a war, Kharkiv is a frontline city. The front is not very far away, and they are also building a zoo in Kharkiv. And in Kharkiv, there is also a problem with the bomb shelter. There is nothing, and there are a lot of flowers. Built, opened recently. Just then, Kernis died. 2020 or 2021. That is, when an anti-terrorist operation zone, instead of preparing territorial defense forces, training fighters, issuing at least something, well, they built a zoo for 2 billion. And now,
I am the
Oko
one
Fuel
who
Company
says that
collects
for the
400
state,
million
it
for
is a
26
penny.
brigades. That is,
And this is
we could,
only
roughly
one
speaking, provide
factor.
5 times more brigades.
And in general, providing the troops there with drones and intelligence means is also a penny for the state. But to date, I still cannot reveal some details. But I was surprised anyway. There, I thank and respect my commander from our unit, who was constantly finding something from someone somewhere, begging. The mattresses and other different things, all we need. Furthermore, I provided my crew with almost everything they needed, and it made it possible to work, and that would be naked and barefoot, roughly speaking, and this, unfortunately, was our provision. I was very surprised because I thought I was joining the Special Operations Forces. There should be space, in short. I don't want to offend the Special Operations Forces in any way, because in general they dressed, issued ammunition, everything was quite top-notch. Even when we were going to the rotation, when they gave me a 511 jacket, I was like, wow.
The 8th Regiment was given Carinthia. They have...
Well, in short, it should be like this. For the state to buy Carinthia for special forces is no problem at all, but more serious means, for example, intelligence, then. It should just lie there in the box, and when the guys ran out of one product, they took out another and worked with a new one. And with us, it was the situation that you just cherished it, because it's the most valuable thing for you. Sometimes, in reality, during war, guys often risk their lives not to lose the means and make mistakes that affect their health and life.
You know, the same situation with drones. There's a drone man, and yes, they come very close to the enemy's position, just to avoid losing the drone. Because, for example, we recently dug a trench, made a dugout there for our brother, and the drone flies. We did all this, very close, a kilometer from the first front line. It was even closer there, because he wouldn't lose the drone. That's all. Although they could start somewhere even 4 kilometers away.
This is better for those who fly first-person view drones, to have a radio horizon. But in general, because we do not have enough of these means for calm professional work, so that people think only about destroying the enemy, not about the means, we still have this situation.
Oh, I wrote to you, asked you to help me find drones. Well, I told you there is a guy who had one drone for a month and a half. A month and a half, one drone. I mean, he hasn't lost it either. He has an antenna. We helped him buy an antenna. He has one, and he is holding on to it like it's gold because he realizes that he has no more, and he has no subscribers in the media.
A Mavic trivial device, even if you buy it in the usual configuration, and you still have the remote control left over from what you lost, you can still get a Mavic for the best price of 80,000 hryvnias. This is 2,000 euros. It's not so easy for most soldiers to buy a drone. The idea is that if the state does not change the system of providing equipment and focuses more on drones, then we are both a step away from victory and a step away from defeat. Because for us, the fact that the front line can be freezed is a defeat, because our partners will quickly get tired of us, and their assistance will become less and less. We have no military-industrial complex built or developed. We still produce almost nothing in a year and a half. In 9 years. Especially in the last year and a half, when it seemed that it was not necessary to work here in 2 shifts, but to devote every second to the expansion of the military-industrial complex. Unfortunately, it is not there yet, and if it does not happen now, but there are some changes. From what I see, I feel, this is thanks to Minister Fedorov, because he just started very actively in this direction of drones last year. He immediately understood how important automated systems would be. The enemy greatly outnumbers us, and we can beat quantity only with quality. The quality of their professional skills and the quality of their means. That is, the more automated systems we will have, and for example at the beginning, when I was mobilized, was given a machine gun, I started training in a group. And I realized where I couldn't compete with people like you, or professional soldiers who have been studying all these tactical things for years, decades. I immediately understood what I could be useful for. We've been making music videos all our lives. I myself shot some shots for my clips on a drone. I think this is the direction where I can be useful. And the direction of the drones just aligned everyone. Because it became new for everyone. That is, the same Mavic, even at the beginning of the war. In the summer of last year, not so many people flew on those Mavic. Certainly. And then, when I moved to the direction of the FPV, it leveled everyone up. The specialists themselves and the mobilized IT guys. And the mobilized IT specialists often show better results, because they have been working with some kind of consoles all their lives. And for them, it's easier to master it.
Well, because it's new, and the special forces need to look at it this way, something else.
But in general, the synthesis of both can produce a great result. There are several groups of drone contractors I know, for example, but I'm not sure if it's okay to name this group. Anyway, there is a group that started flying some unusual drones last fall. Maybe it's no longer a secret, but there were drones on the Starlink. And because the control channel was via the internet, they could not be jammed. And they destroyed about 400 units of equipment during the fall and winter. They were showing me what they had destroyed. I have already seen a lot of groups of drone controllers who say, but it was a solntsapik, but it was very hard to understand what it was at all. But those guys really confirmed it. You can clearly see the outline of the equipment and identify it. You understand that there was an explosion, there is confirmation that the target was hit. And they have their T-90EM breakthrough, Sonaltsepiaki, etc. They destroyed such expensive equipment, possibly worth $1 billion. And this is an indicator of how you can effectively, what, for example, is the success of this group. Because there are a lot of guys who are special forces, and there are a lot of IT guys who control drones. And one of them created the initiation system, and other created the technical base, roughly speaking. And this leads to such results. Or, for example, now the M2 unit, which was in Omega, is overwhelming. Now they are in the SBU. They are now also giving incredible results, FPV drones. But M2 is by far the most efficient. They drop up to 50 units of equipment a month. This is like the result hire of space.
Yes, now even artillerymen think like that. Like, we have a cannon, 155, Excalibur, and HIMARS, but one guy with a drone flies up, close to, and he makes a destruction of enemies.
No, in fact, artillerymen without artillery, war is impossible at all. The question is that we need real-time intelligence. For example, we are given satellite images. They are updated every 3 hours. That's what we were given. But he stands in a field and moves 100 meters every hour. If you don't have real-time intelligence, in a field of 3 by 3 kilometers, you're not able to fucking destroy it. That's why drones are very important today. And there is progress. There are a lot of interesting developments. For example, maritime drones, as we can see from what they did with the Crimean Bridge, and the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Yes, and the Black Sea Fleet. That's why it's a very sneaky thing. There's nothing much you can do with it except for physical destruction. And this, I believe, is personally our only way to defeat the enemy, not at an extremely high cost. Because I don't want our war against the enemy looked like the Second World War, as we imagined it, where you run with your boots on to pick up a gun, roughly speaking, and that's why I really hope that now someone there will get their asses kicked.
Now there is a draft law, but it is being blocked. 10% want local budgets to be allocated for the needs of the armed forces. I mean, as a community,
this is generally mandatory, because it turns out that we pay taxes to local budgets from our salaries, and they take this money and spend it on paving, instead of having an algorithm for supporting military units. I know that our military unit was supported in this way. They bought some equipment.
Well, they kind of give the taxes back to the soldiers, roughly speaking. That's all. And it's very cool. But not all cities do this. Very few do.
And there are a lot of schemes. Moe laundering. I know that there are city mayors there who have negotiated with the commanders of military units.
Let the Security Service of Ukraine, National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, Office of the Prosecutor General, Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, and everyone else work and prevent it.